This is Unloaded. Today, we're sharing our favorite books to help you on your health and fitness journey. So basically, you're popping into book club here. Grab your tea, grab your coffee or your matcha, and sit down and have a listen. We think these books will have a major impact. We've used them ourselves for our own health and fitness journey and for our clients. We're going to pop our contact information into the video description. So if you have any questions and you want to get in touch with us, just take a peek there. We're going to get right into it. So I'm going to get started. Megan, my favorite book, I would say, probably of all time, something that had a major impact for me, we'll say as an athlete, as a human being, but also, I would say it's an absolute weapon. If you're a coaching professional, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Have you read it?
I haven't read through the whole thing. I've been in the last 3 years more into listening to books than I have been in sitting down reading. So I've listened to pieces of it, and then I follow him on social media. And I have to say, there's nothing I've seen from him so far that I haven't loved or haven't been inspired, motivated by. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, totally. Actually, I would say if you follow him on social media, you probably over time, you'll get most of the good stuff in those little nuggets that he drops, as well as just in he sends a daily email newsletter as well. So he really is awesome at offering just free content, free education, and it all comes from his book. It's all the same ideas. So you can absorb a lot that way. The book itself.
He's one of those high value pages that I can just unfollow 5 other people and keep him.
Yes. Yeah, totally. I find, so the book itself is really digestible. The language is very, very concise and clear. Yeah. The concepts are easy to grasp. And I think this is important. It's not one of those books where you have to go back and reread and try to understand the point. And I think that's important when it comes to, right? You're not trying to be confused.
You're more likely to move on.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really important, I think, when we're looking, especially from a health and fitness perspective, how can I apply this? How does this, and I find when I was reading this book, I was nodding a lot. I do this, or I encourage clients. Yeah, exactly. And I'm telling my clients to do this. So he just basically provides a lot of clarity and organizes it in a way that, like I said, is really digestible. So I want to kind of dive into or focus on 3 concepts that I found to be really powerful and I think would be very helpful for clients. Again, if somebody was asking me for content or a resource, something that they could read to help them, just kind of get, some of those habits really shored up, this would be the book that I would recommend. And then these 3 concepts I find to be really important.
Yeah.
So the first idea is habit stacking. So this is early on in the book. He talks about this. So the idea is that you take a desired behavior, so something that you want to implement, and you attach it to something that you're already doing. So it's supposed to make it just a little bit easier, because the idea is that a lot of our behavior is connected. So for example, let's just say you want to start a daily meditation practice. So instead of, I'm just, something vague, I'm going to meditate for 2 minutes every day. The idea would be, I'm going to pour myself a cup of coffee because it's something you do every morning. And then I'm going to meditate for 2 minutes. So instead of just kind of putting it out there and hoping that you're going to do it, you connect it to something that's already established, something that you're going to do every day. So I think that if we look at how we can apply that, it's super effective. We look at basically developing a set of rules or a code, right? So I put my plate on the counter. The first thing I do is I put protein on it. Then my vegetables go on it. And you do this every single time you make a meal.
And right? I mean, you apply this to one area of your life, it's easier to do it in the next and the next.
Exactly.
And it applies to absolutely everything, whether it's just trying to take a few more steps every day, or a little more bike ride, or a little more time with the family, or a little more time reading, anything.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I think over time, it just becomes, like I said, like I don't want to say a set of rules, but it provides structure. And I think like if I look at my most successful clients, they are structured. And that's what we're always trying to create is like what are the habits that we want to like build and maintain? And then just looking at stacking the new behaviors that we're after on top of those. And we do it like one at a time, right? So it's not like
Yeah.
we're trying to do everything at once, just
Yeah,
one.
which is it makes it such a good startup book for someone brand new to exercising, which is a lot of the clients that we see. It just makes it a little less overwhelming and a
Yes,
better way to
totally.
get started. And which, if we stack them like that, it just means that we will last a little bit longer, or
Uh-huh.
the
Yeah.
likelihood is that we'll last a little bit longer in the health and fitness game and with our
Yes.
health and wellness. Yeah.
100%. And I think it's honestly a super important piece for nutrition because that's the one where we can see like a pretty
Absolutely.
significant drop
That's the
off pretty
hardest one.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we need to create momentum and we need to stack wins. And I think that's what the habit stacking really captures. So I
Yeah.
like that concept a lot.
Yeah.
The next one that I think is huge, and you're going to see this in the gym, and you're going to see this in the nutrition space, the environment. So is your
Absolutely.
environment, a place where you can succeed? And for like, I mean, we see this all the time. What happens when we're in an environment that does not support our goals versus when we are in an environment that does. Now, there's some
Yeah.
interesting
This is a big
research.
topic. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So when we talk about environment, we look at individuals and we see people succeeding with their fitness and nutrition goals. Man, like that guy, he's so disciplined. He's got so much willpower. And what researchers have found is that science doesn't actually support the idea that there are people with superhuman willpower. What
Yeah.
they've realized is that these individuals are really good at structuring their environments. So
Yeah.
they're not constantly running up against temptation and they're not constantly running up against friction that stops them from succeeding. So it's not that they have extraordinary willpower. It's just that they don't have to constantly use it, right? So if you think about it, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. And I talk about this with clients a lot.
Yeah.
I say, like, I work in a gym. I do all the grocery shopping. So I'm not
Yeah.
bringing stuff into the house that I
Yeah.
constantly have to walk by because if you put a tin of cookies on my counter, I'm freaking eating
Well,
them. Like,
great. Yeah. Every day you're challenging yourself, and I mean, that might be part of it, depending on who lives in your house, but it doesn't have to be.
yes,
It's not always about willpower. I agree.
it is.
That's
100%. And I think too, like if you think about it, if your environment more or less supports your goals and
Mhm.
is set up in a way that allows you to succeed and you're not constantly tempted when you are in situations where there is like some delicious food or some we'll just say some temptations, you probably have we'll say a little bit more willpower or a little bit more
Yeah.
discipline in the tank because it's not exhausted, because you're not constantly fighting
Yeah.
against like, oh, my partner's brought in treats and there's donuts
Yeah.
on the corner desk in the office that I pass 30 times a day. Like, so I think you'll
Absolutely.
probably, right? You have a little bit more resilience because you
Yeah.
haven't constantly been banged up. So, I think that the environment is really important. And it actually ties into the third concept, the last piece that I think is so, so important. And that is your peer group. So this one's really big.
Tough one.
Yeah, like I'll just say like there's a reason why I don't hang out with women who want to guzzle bottles of wine and martinis and crush appetizers all weekend. I don't want to feel like them. I
Oh,
don't want to perform like them. And chances are I probably don't want to look like them. And maybe they feel that way about me too. And I'm fine with that. But I
I think
think it's,
it's I mean, we all see, yeah, a lot of people value different things in life, and the
yes.
idea of really living might revolve around being adventurous with food and alcohol. But for us, well, at least me, but I
Yeah.
believe this for you too.
Yeah.
It comes in the hours of the day that come between like 7 a.m. and 6 p.m.
Yeah.
instead of those later hours where you're drinking and eating to try and
Yeah.
feel like you're living.
Right.
We live
And
in those long hours of the day and we fill it with adventure and excitement.
exactly. And I
Activity.
think and the key, and I think too, like the big piece for me is that when I see people struggle, I often see that their peer group. So maybe it's their relationships or maybe it's their friends. They are not people that share the same values. They are not people that
Yeah.
embody the lifestyle that this person is pursuing. So proximity is powerful, right? And so and it kind of ties back into that environment piece where it's like if there is a behavior that you are striving to achieve, there is a person that you are striving to become, then you need to step into an environment where that behavior
Yeah.
is normal, where that's the culture. And so you think
Yeah.
about what kind of people are going to be in that environment and where is that environment. So
Yeah.
it's those two pieces. I think honestly you could just like stack them up. They support each other. They have like a symbiotic relationship.
Sure.
And when I see my clients struggle the most, it's
Mhm.
often because their partners or their peer group create an incredible amount of friction for them, essentially, where it's like you are
You don't
constantly
want to
battling.
oversimplify. Yeah, totally. You don't want to oversimplify it in the way that like there's a lot of people we love who don't want to live their lifestyle, live their life the way that we do. So
Yes.
sometimes it's learning to live with it, but we shouldn't have to change the way that we are just to make someone else more comfortable with having more drinks and
Yeah.
etc. But like you said before, we make it a little bit easier, even if it's just hanging out with people who don't want to do the same activities that we want to do when we hang out. It's
Yeah.
like the cookies on the counter. If we have
Yes.
enough friends that live this other lifestyle and we have a good environment of our peers, at least with most of our groups that live that
Yeah.
lifestyle, then when we go and hang out with people who aren't doing those same kinds of activities or having those same kinds of discussions, it's a
Yeah.
little easier to still like stick to your true self and what you want.
Absolutely. You can 100% create that balance. Like you could be someone that
Well, and
is
we
able
have
to.
to sometimes, but
Yeah, you
yeah,
can set boundaries. You can say like this person in my life is someone who if I want to go out and have dinner and a glass of wine, this is the person I'm going to call because like I know they're good for it. They're going to be a good time and this is something that they have fun doing and we can
yeah,
have fun doing together once in a while.
yeah,
If obviously where things get a little bit more complicated is if like that is your entire cohort or
yeah,
that is you have sort of this goal of whether it's like gaining muscle or getting stronger or just feeling better. If fat loss is in there and you have a partner that is just like 100% like supports you in words but not in action, it can be very
absolutely.
challenging. So like
It
as
is.
from a
It's
coaching,
difficult and it's complicated and I
yes.
have friends and clients like that who have made great progress, great changes, but then there's a lot of guilt at home because their
Yes.
partner doesn't want that and then
Yeah.
they start eating and drinking more to try and make them a little more uncomfortable
Yeah.
and and then it causes friction in their relationship
It
because
does.
they
Yeah.
don't want the same
Resentment.
things. But I
Yeah.
think there's a way to coexist. You just have to really respect the other person's desires and
100%. Yeah.
maybe go walk with them more. Do find an activity. Like
Yes.
maybe you don't want to go to the gym with them, that's fine, but there's other things that you can try and
You can
find.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've had that conversation with clients where I've said, if this is really like a goal that you have to make these changes and it's important to you,
Yeah.
definitely have that conversation, let your peer group or your partner know, and then set some boundaries. And also like, detach the journey from them. Like you have to
Yeah.
recognize that if they are the barrier, if they're the main source of friction, then you just have to like move them out of the way. And you can still love them and they can still be a part of your life,
Yeah.
whether again, it's that friend but you're not relying on them for support
Yeah.
or motivation. Like that is something that is intrinsic. You are
Yeah.
doing it because it's important to you. And I think too, once, you know, if you have like real agency and this is something that's really important to you, those things probably eventually won't be as big of a barrier if you are determined. But there's no denying that they have an impact for sure.
They do. Yeah, it's tough.
It's tough,
It's
yeah.
not any
But
situation at
it's
all.
the first step is just really like acknowledging it. And then once you know, hey, this is a barrier, then you can work
Yeah,
on it.
be
So
okay
I
with
think that's
addressing it
important.
and address it
Yeah,
quickly. Get it done.
100%.
Talk
Yeah,
about it,
100%.
but don't give in. Don't give
Yeah,
in just because you need to make someone else comfortable. There's ways to navigate it differently than that, I think.
I think so too. I 100% agree. The other book that I want to quickly
Yeah.
drop in here before I hand it over to you here is okay. So something that comes up a lot when I'm working with nutrition clients, I need recipes, and
Yeah.
this is a tough one for me. So something I've come to realize, and I think a lot of nutrition or a lot of nutrition coaches will agree with, is that it's not about the recipe. And eventually clients will understand this too. Like if they really grasp, like how, like the whole nutrition game works and like how making effective changes works. It's about putting together foods you enjoy, in different
Absolutely.
combinations on your plate and just repeating those foods,
Yeah.
with the occasional like fun meal thrown in there. It doesn't mean that foods can't be delicious. It just means that it's often not a really complicated recipe,
Yeah.
that takes hours to prepare. Because again, one of the major barriers for people is time. So if we don't have time to slave for an hour or 90 minutes in the kitchen, but we maybe have like 10, 20 minutes to put something together, or if we're planning ahead, we're using our crock pot, etc. So this
Yeah.
book that I really love, and when clients are asking for recipes, I often refer to this book. It's called "What's for Dinner," and it's by Sarah Rossi. And the meals are super simple, like they're whole food based. A lot of it is just like Taco Tuesday, Greek bowls with like chicken and lots of vegetables, and like there are some like
It's complicated. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Nothing complicated. Just like what I like to think of it as is meal ideas. And I think
Yeah.
that's ultimately when clients are asking for recipes, what they're
Yeah.
really trying to figure out is how to put foods together that they enjoy. And
Yeah.
this book captures that beautifully. Meal ideas. So, those would be my top two recommendations for both nutrition and fitness. Obviously, the recipe book nutrition and supporting your fitness goals along the way. What about you, Megan? Let's dive into your top picks here.
So the first book that I chose was it's received a lot of praise and also controversy.
Love
Outlive: The
controversy.
Science and Art of Longevity by Dr. Peter Attia, which
Awesome.
I really enjoyed. I listened to this book. I didn't sit. I have a hard time sitting these days. I moved out to the country an hour away from work, so I'm already driving 2 hours a day. The idea of sitting down too much longer eats me alive. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was listening to it
Listen to it.
yeah, as I was
Doing
just
some yard
walking.
work.
Exactly. Yeah, anything where I can pay attention at least a little bit and hear what's being said. So I
Yeah,
really liked this book. I found it motivating. And Dr. Atia advocates for advanced testing, for example, like genetic testing, MRIs, and different technology, which potentially emphasizes technology over a simpler lifestyle changes. So for me, this was one of the downsides of the book, but it was still interesting to listen to his take on it.
yeah.
There
So
were a
he's
lot of things.
suggesting, is he suggesting technology like sort of like preventative stuff? So like getting out in if you have the like if you have access to this technology, like kind of figuring out in
Yeah,
advance what they okay.
absolutely. Which, I mean, makes it far less accessible, whether it's financially or just you can't access these things.
Yeah.
So for a lot of it, I would listen, I would find it interesting, but I would let some of it go because no, I
Yeah.
will
Makes
not.
sense. Yeah. No, makes
And I do
sense.
like, yeah, and I'm all about trying to make it more and more simple. Other than, I mean, it would be interesting to know these things, but I don't have access to these things right now. And you don't need them to live this
This is
really,
true.
yeah, really healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
So beyond that, what were you, sorry.
Well, I
Um,
was going to say, like, if I agree with you, like if
yeah.
people read it and then they see it as a barrier to start making changes or to start
Well, it's
pursuing,
discouraging and it could send you in the other
for sure,
direction. So
100%.
it's not to say that I don't think people should listen or read this book or get his message out of it. It's just understand that that is not necessary. And if this is not something, a road that you want to go down, you don't have to, and
You
you
don't
can still
have
take
to.
away quite a bit.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he also speaks about restrictive diets a little bit, which I don't. I mean, I do have restrictions in the way that I want to eat a certain way to support the kind of lifestyle that I want, but
Hmm.
I don't really play around with like fasting and intermittent fasting and stuff like that, which he speaks about a little bit.
Right.
You probably have a few clients. We both have clients who have played around with that and had either great results or not, but
Yes, definitely.
yeah, for me, it's just not the way that I need to go. I want to eat, and I know when I eat more, I do better, and that's good enough for me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hot button topic at fasting for
Yeah,
sure. That's
it
a whole other
really
episode.
it is, and I'm like, there's a lot of these things that we could go off into, but we'll save those for other episodes. I enjoyed his emphasis on personal health and responsibility. That's probably one of the things that I took away the most because I'm all about trying to take more and more accountability in my life and
Yeah,
getting others to do that. That's part of what needs to happen to
I
start to make
agree.
changes in your lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that message from his book, and I have a deep appreciation for he talks a lot about lifespan versus health span, which would be,
Yeah.
yeah, which would be the difference of just expanding your lifetime, living a little bit longer versus how healthy you are in
Yeah.
those
Like
years that you have and what
adding,
you're able to do.
right. Adding
Mhm.
years or adding quality years. Like there is
Yeah.
definitely, there's a difference. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was probably my biggest takeaway from the book was and something that I already resonated with and try and live by, but to hear it in his words and then just creating goals for yourself when you're 60, 70, 80. I've always
Yeah.
found that very motivating. That's a huge part of what keeps me going every day versus kind of,
100%.
falling off the wagon, taking a month off here and there. I find it very, very motivating to work out for my future self.
For your
Uh,
future. So yeah. I
yeah.
noticed he really like whenever he is featured on podcasts or you see those like sort of tidbits of him speaking on social media, that is
Mhm.
something that he emphasizes is that
Yeah.
that like, really focusing on getting strong, building muscle, incorporating the right style of training so that you are enjoying those later years. So you're not just like existing, you are like living, you're a functional human being that
Yeah.
is, independent and can take care of yourself. And, just to circle back to, your comment about like his emphasis and focus on personal accountability and I can't tell you like it's interesting to me how that concept can be sort of a even controversial. Like I don't understand it. I think
Yeah.
what you kind of get into when you go down that path is that the victim mentality, like this is happening to me, and again, not taking away from like actual victims. Like obviously there are terrible things that happen, and sort of
Oh, absolutely. And
obviously
there are things going on in our environments that we can't
we can't
control.
control, right?
Yeah.
But if there is an opportunity for you to have some agency and for
Yeah.
you to take back some control in like any capacity, when I see clients do that, when I see people that have like traditionally struggled this, when they
Yeah.
do that, they blossom. It's honestly like you watch like a rebirth where they realize like they're empowered to make these
Yeah.
changes and make themselves feel good. It's an
Absolutely.
amazing
You can
thing.
see the shift in their life and in the message they send, and even just how they talk about when they have a day that would have been a fail to them a month ago.
Yeah,
Suddenly it's just the little win. So it changes everything. And then they start to
agreed.
change even who they surround themselves with, or the
How's that?
activities that they're doing, or
Yeah,
yeah,
a
how they
ripple
feel
effect.
leaving the gym, how they feel leaving work. It changes everything.
Totally, totally agree. Yeah, awesome.
So I love the book for those reasons. I can understand why it gets a little overwhelming with some of the sciencey stuff, with the talk of the technology. But I just listened, and I keep what I need to keep, and I let go what I need to let go. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I've read some health books, health and fitness and nutrition pieces lately where I've done the exact same thing. They're a little controversial, and it
Yeah.
depends who you speak to, but I think it's so important to keep an open mind and
I think you
yeah,
should
take
still
what you
listen
need.
and hear it, and
Yeah.
it just let some of it go. I remember being overwhelmed by all of it when I started in the health and fitness industry, especially because it's like rah rah rah. You have to do this, never do that. That exercise is the worst one you can ever do,
Yeah.
and it was really overwhelming. And then
Yes.
you start trying to find the few people that you trust, but if they do this and you disagreed with it before, I don't know, be
Your whole
open
world
to
implodes.
everything, but like let it go, just keep moving forward, and
Yes.
you can still hear it. You don't
Yeah.
need to hide from it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think too, when we're telling clients, like whenever, and for ourselves and for our clients, like, that's to me, that's sort of a red flag if somebody is very
Oh yeah, black and
confined to a
white.
certain way of
Yeah,
thinking, like this is the way and there is no other way and never do this. Like people that are speaking in absolutes it's usually a red flag. Again, you can
it is.
certainly keep an open mind and take some stuff from them, but don't get too caught up in following their current super strict set of rules about what you should eat and when you should eat or what exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah, exercise selection gets crazy on the internet too. Like optimal this, okay, wow. Some people just need to do something. So
You know, I know. Let's just let it go and be happy that people
move
are doing
on.
something. And then if they want a little more, we can offer more. But just
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. Too
Awesome.
much fear mongering out there, and
For
I'm trying to
sure.
get rid of it as much as I can in my own life and in my own language.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Awesome.
so that's my first book. My second book is The Third Pole by Mark Sinott.
Okay.
So this book I liked. I usually listen to like adventurous books or something that is a little bit motivating, even if it's just my kind of fun listen, and a little less like self-help or educational reading. A lot of things revolve around coaching, so it was nice to just not yeah, it was like a little break from that, even though it wasn't. I like this book. It revolves around a little bit of adventure, history, personal reflection, and he covers. It's a lot about the risks and motivation of climbing Mount Everest.
Oh,
So I
wow.
found it compelling for anyone who's interested in just testing their own limits and
Awesome.
listening about that. I love those books. Human
Yeah.
limits are probably the most interesting thing that I can listen to. Yeah.
Yeah. And he probably dives into a lot of the mindset stuff, like
Oh
just
yeah.
kind of like how he steeled himself and like readied himself for that kind of endeavor.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's
then I mean
awesome.
a little bit interesting with all of the deaths and everything that goes on. So you got a little bit of drama in there
Yeah, a
too.
little drama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Awesome.
it is a very motivating book. So it made me hit
Recommend
the
it.
gym a little bit harder too. Made me
Yeah.
try some new things with a little less fear. Help my mountain biking a little bit, no doubt.
Awesome. Awesome. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of fun, I do have to pop before we wrap this up. I should mention I have been heavily involved in reading adult fantasy recently.
Nice.
I don't know if you're familiar with Sarah Maas. She's the author of the ACOTAR series and the Crescent City series. Does any of that
I I've heard of her, but
You've
I have
heard of
not,
her?
yeah,
Yeah.
have not gone
It's
down that road.
no, well, it is like it is an escape, 100%. It is so it's
Oh,
adult
good.
fantasy. Basically, think of it as the adult version, like it's Twilight for adults. Okay, so a lot of like fantasy. So we've
Yeah,
got like fairies and angels and I believe there's demons and vampires, like every character. There's
everything.
humans as well, but the humans are
Yeah,
the least interesting.
I believe it.
And it's spicy. Like there is like heavy duty like romance and like they do not hold back. So it's funny when you start reading it because it gets recommended to you by like a client or a friend or someone,
Yeah.
and you're reading it and you're like, whoa, wow, what did they think when they read
Yeah.
this chapter? So there is definitely like a huge like escape element to it, and it's very like well written. It's fun.
Oh, good.
There's lots of
And we need
so
that too. And you know what? I find like in the gym, people get so obsessed with the self-help stuff, which I enjoy. I enjoy having those
absolutely
discussions, but we need a break from it.
we do. We you
Yeah,
know
we need
what?
to remind ourselves like we can escape
Take
from
go
it a
into
little bit. Like if you don't
100%.
read a self-help book and you read or a motivational book and you read something else, you're not going to be less motivated. You're not going to
Yeah,
be off track. Like just have fun.
have
So
fun.
I
Yeah,
like that. I should try more books like that. I'll
you
put it on
know
my list.
it honestly, for me, I found the thing that it does for me is that it helps me unplug.
Yeah.
I'm able to become fully absorbed in just like holding a paperback in my
Yeah.
hands. That's a really important part for me too, is to be able to put my phone down. Because obviously we know
Yeah.
like there are just some troubling statistics around social media.
Yeah.
I think I
Yeah.
read in 2016, Americans checked their phone 8 billion times a day. Okay. And like that's insane to me. But also the research around what they called it was I can't remember the name, but it had something to do with the magic of maybe. So it measured dopamine response. So you go to your phone and you go through all your apps and you check all your messaging. Like, did someone message me on social media? Did someone like my picture? Do I have an email? And maybe
Yeah.
nothing came through. And then you check again like 3 minutes later. And apparently, if you get a like or an email response or something like that, you get like a 400% increase in dopamine. Like it's like
Wow.
something wild. So it's completely addictive. So for me, being able to pick up these books that are just like completely removed from reality, it's a way to disconnect from that and just
And
like
maybe in some ways bringing you back to reality.
be healthy. Yeah, like
Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Reconnect with yourself and disconnect from everything out there a little bit more. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
100%.
that's
So
important.
whether it's adult fantasy or whatever you're into, definitely I think it's important to have that outlet and to be able to just like disconnect for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I
Awesome.
feel like I look through for that through exercise, but there's only so much exercise you can do.
Right? Exactly. Before it
Well,
becomes its own problem.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Awesome. Well, this was super fun. I should let everyone know, next week we are going to be diving into the world of alcohol. We're going to be chatting a little bit about alcohol, how it impacts training, recovery, what the research is saying about healthy limits and if there are any. So if you're interested, definitely subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you are subscribed to Borealis Fitness and Nutrition so you get updates about when we drop these episodes. We are trying to drop an episode every Saturday, so mark your calendar and check back and see. And we appreciate you being here and listening to what we have to say.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.